Okay, we'll get going. To our distinguished guests, the Mayor of Waterford City Metropolitan District, Councillor Jody Power, past Presidents of Engineers Ireland, John Power and Philip Callery, Senior Vice President of Engineers Ireland, Laura Burke, Director General of Engineers Ireland, Damien Owens, past chairs of the committee, current committee members, ladies and gentlemen, you're all very welcome to this special event to celebrate the 50th year of the South East Region of Engineers Ireland. My name is Dr. Kevin Stevens, and it just so happens that I'm in the chair for the 50th year, so I'll be taking you through the evening. We have some guest speakers, we have some reflections from past chairs, and we have some presentations to make. But tonight really is about bringing people together, people who may not have seen each other for a very, very long time. So we'll get through a few things and we'll let that happen as quickly as possible. I've been on the committee for quite a while. I was very casually asked if I wanted to stay on for a committee AGM after my conferring ceremony in the Springhill Court in Kilkenny many years ago, and I've been involved ever since. And people are often surprised that I'm involved, or they wonder why, and so I'm just going to tell you a little bit now about what it means to me to be involved in the South East region of Engineers Ireland. So I feel by being involved, I'm making some small contribution back to an industry that's given me a career that I very much enjoy. In this region, through the events we organise, we're promoting engineering as a profession, and we're creating CPD opportunity for ourselves and for others to expand and develop our knowledge and skill sets. I'm a consultant civil engineer in a global multidisciplinary practice. So for over 90% of my time, I sit at a computer like an accountant, and even though I work on some very large and interesting projects, many of them don't make it to construction, and of the few that do, they can be all over the world, and that means I often don't get to see any part of construction or indeed the finished article. And that for me, as an engineer who likes to build things, is often a source of great frustration, and I think it's a large part of the reason why the highlight of being involved here for me is the site visits. So the most memorable site visits for me, they're all civil related, but the region is very diverse. We've been on all sorts of trips to factories and farms and all sorts of different things. But the most memorable ones for me would be, we went to see Enniscorthy Bypass during construction. We had several trips to New Ross Bypass at various stages in construction. And last year we went to see the National Children's Hospital in Dublin. And one that I'm very much looking forward to is we're going across the way to see the project on the North Quays in a couple of weeks. Most of these trips have been organised by Christy Hannon of BAM, who year after year brings us on outstanding trips, and great credit is due to him. I don't think he realises just how important it is for the likes of me to get out and see every now and again what he sees every day. Although I hope I never see the inside of the Children's Hospital again, I do remember extremely fondly every time I pass over the bridge in New Ross, the days that we spent there learning about the complexities of the project. And I remember particularly early on, just as two piers started to emerge, I remember thinking, like, how can this be done? And there it is now, a testament to what engineers can achieve, some of them here in the room tonight. It's a phenomenal project to have right in the heart of our region, and you can't just rock up to a site like that and ask for a look around. So to be brought around behind the scenes and to literally see the nuts and bolts of a very complex project like that, they are very, very special experiences for me. So that's the highlight. But in addition then, being a part of Engineers Ireland, it provides you with the opportunity to meet like-minded people for socialising and networking, and as many of us retract further and further into our remote working bubbles, I think that becomes all the more and more important. And I find you spend an awful lot of your time in your job defending. You're defending your position, defending your end of a contract, defending your design. It can be quite refreshing to come somewhere like this and have a chat with somebody who you have no particular history with and no particular agenda other than to work together for the common good. I think it gives you the chance as well, you can make a buddy, maybe on the other side of the fence, and gain an insight into how an institution may be very different to your own operates, and it can really broaden your horizons in that respect and help you to interact with different institutions. I find it a great way as well to keep up to speed with what's going on in the local area in terms of engineering projects. So what's being built now, next year, 5 years, who's building it, what techniques are they using, what materials are they using, who's supplying the materials, how is it being procured, how is it being financed. All of these are extremely useful things to take back to your own projects. So that, in a nutshell, is why I enjoy being part of the committee. For a minimal effort, I find it to be a very rewarding and enjoyable experience. So we move on now to our guest speakers. We're very lucky to have esteemed guests tonight, and they're very well known to all of you, I'm sure, so I'm not going to over-elaborate on the introductions. First up, we have Green Party Councillor Jody Power, who's the current Mayor of Waterford City Metropolitan District. Jody is a maritime engineer, he's a Fellow of Engineers Ireland, and he's a past South East Region Committee member, so it's very fitting that he's here with us this evening. Jody?
This Murgah Galir, a Gwini Ushle. Fáilte go Carr Port Larga, agus tá anáthair some a bheith live an seán here in Nacht. I príomh Carr na Déise, Port Larga, an Carr is far sa tír seo, gan down. Anyway, thank you very much, Owen, for the invitation here tonight. I feel really honoured to be in all your presence from the current chairperson of the Southeast. Congratulations on your 50th year, to past President John. And we have and to Damien here as well, who is the current senior, the senior VP is Laura. Laura, so lovely to meet you, and Damien is the Director General. So lovely to be with you, and all my fellow engineers that are here tonight. Now, I'm a little bit disappointed that I don't see some of my council engineers, my executive, here tonight, because I have a few words to say to them. Well, I was hoping to address them through all of you here tonight, but what can I do? Maybe I can tell you a little bit. Owen asked me to talk a little bit about the importance of engineering. The last thing you need to know is the importance of engineering, because nothing would be as it is in our world today if it wasn't for engineers. And you all know that. I would rather like to talk tonight about how we've let the side down. All right? When I was 17 years old, I went to the UK and I got a cadetship as a Marine Engineer Officer Cadet with Shell oil tankers, okay? And they sent me off to the UK. While I was in my 4 years of cadetship apprenticeship, and as you know, at sea, we can't just get the theoretical side of things, we have to know the practical side of things as well, because if we have something broken down, we can't call anybody. We're the guys to fix it. And there's very few engineer officers on board as well, but we're, like in a mini city, we're in charge of everything. So it's a major education, really, really good. And at 22, 23 years of age, I was in charge of a watch with 36 megawatts of power, and I'm sitting in the control with 36 megawatts of power underneath me. But what got me, and as I came across and through, interacting back in Ireland again, because I came, as I say, I was around the world for working for Shell Oil. Then I was working for Lloyd's as a surveyor, based in the UK, and then I lived in America, and that's where I really spread my wings, to know that there's a lot more to engineering, and there's a lot more to life than just engineering as well. But I digress. You'll have to come and bring me back for another 30-minute talk to talk about that. But what I really, really wanted to get across to you here tonight, when I grew up as a young engineer in the UK, and the UK were on about, well, we did this engineering. Charlie Parsons, oh, it was our turbines. Okay, we have Ernest Walter, oh, that was our atomic energy. Okay, Boyle's Law, another great British scientist, and all this lot. All these things were Irish. I came up through the education system in Ireland, and I never knew what incredible engineering accomplishments that were achieved in this country. Incredible. Let me just take a submarine, for instance. The first submarine, John Holland from Cork. Okay? The first nuclear reaction for the nuclear submarines, Ernest Walton from Waterford. All right? The first torpedo, okay, Thompson from Castlebar. So we've got all these fantastic engineers, and all we know is our poets. Now, don't get me wrong, they're wonderful, they're world class, and they've got the Nobel Prizes and all this lot, but what have we achieved in engineering? Far more, because we changed the world, all right? Poets and our authors, they inspire the world, but we changed the world. Okay, the Parsons turbines were the first electricity turbines in the world. So why isn't our education system able to get across what we have in this country? And in this country, it's world class. Even to this day, we're proving it, all right? But us engineers, we're too shy about it. We should be shouting out there from the rafters exactly what we have here in this country at this time. We have brilliant engineers, okay? Brilliant engineers. All I know is that when I went through the UK system, I was the only Irish guy there. All right, but I got to the top. I got an extra first class chief engineer's ticket in steam propulsion and in motor propulsion, the biggest engines in the world, okay, by far. So anyway, I'll leave that with you tonight. I won't go on anymore, but welcome to Waterford. I hope I haven't put you off too much. Enjoy the party. Thank you very much again, Rowan, for coming here. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jody. Next we have John Power. John is an electrical engineer. He's a graduate of UCD. John has had a long and illustrious career in both ESB and Engineers Ireland, holding almost every position in both along the way, including Director General of Engineers Ireland, and he is the immediate past President of Engineers Ireland. John.
Mayor, Chair of the Region, Vice President, friends, it's lovely to be here. Thank you very, very much for the invitation. I'm here representing our President, Ed Harty, who unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight. He's overseas. But it is a pleasure to be here, and I'm delighted indeed. There's probably little need for me to say anything else, because I think the two previous speakers have summed it up very, very eloquently indeed. But I will bore you for about 3 or 4 minutes, and hopefully no more than that. This evening we celebrate the Golden Jubilee of Engineers Ireland in the South East region, a region that has left an indelible mark on our profession. Allow me to take you back to those transformative days in '74 when this region was created. In 1974, Engineers Ireland, as it stands today, had only existed for 5 years, because for those of us who were around then and remember it, 1969 saw the introduction of the Civil Engineers of Ireland Chartered Amendment Act, which essentially brought together, following considerable discussions, I believe some significant debates, some disagreements, and a few more things, the two organisations, the Institution of Civil Engineers of Ireland and Cumann and Lilatory, manifesting itself eventually at the end of '69 in the body we know now today as Engineers Ireland. Of course, our first manifestation began 189 years ago, I think, at this stage, in 1835. So we've a long history. We can go back a long way. And I think the important thing about that is, as maybe summarised very eloquently, as I say, by the Mayor, is the contribution engineering has made. I fully and totally agree with you that as a profession, we have for too long not been prepared to stand up and be counted and praise the work that's done by our fellow colleagues and the contribution that the engineering profession has made to the success of this country, and indeed every other country also. And also, perhaps more importantly at this stage, it's going to be engineers and engineering that are going to solve the problems that we have today. Because if we're waiting for anybody else to do it, we'll have a long wait. And unfortunately, the problems will overtake us in that time. So really, our time has always been there. But dare I say, our time has come in spades at this stage. A little bit of a digression there, sorry about that. But in 1974, it was a time of transition, of merging diverse perspectives, and of envisioning a future where our shared passion for all engineering would flourish. The creation of Engineers Ireland, as it is today, heralded the creation of our divisions, our regions, and our societies, of which the South East region is now one of the oldest. As we reflect on the past, it's essential to acknowledge the role of the engineer and the remarkable engineering landscape that emerged since 1994. Engineers have played a pivotal part in shaping the region's identity through their unwavering commitment and excellence. Their contribution to various industries, including manufacturing, technology, and of course education, hugely important, has left a huge mark on the community here in the South East region and elsewhere indeed. The journey wasn't without its challenges, as I mentioned, some intense discussions, fervent debates, and the forging of alliances, all common in the engineering process. But through it all, a spirit of camaraderie prevailed, and it's all the more important today than it was then. A recognition that our strength is in our unity. We expanded our horizons, embracing all engineering specializations and providing a platform for their growth. The birth of the Chartered Engineer, professional title, was a defining moment. It's a badge of honour and signified excellence, expertise, and probably more importantly, commitment and integrity. But it's still the only independent verification of engineering excellence in the country. And dare I say, it's still undervalued, but we're making progress. There are over 700 chartered engineers in the South East region, which is excellent, but clearly we'd like to have more. That year in '74 was not just a turning point for the South East region with its creation, but marked a number of memorable historical events also. That was the year that Richard Nixon stepped down as US President because of Watergate. West Germany won the World Cup, believe it or not, 16 years before the unification of Germany. And then a little known group called ABBA won the Eurovision Song Contest with Waterloo. The world was also still reeling from an oil crisis that had begun in earnest the previous year, with soaring fuel prices remaining for the rest of that decade. '74 can seem both a lifetime away, but also only a heartbeat away. But what is certainly true is that the events of that year continue to define the global political and economic landscape we enjoy today. This is also true for this region. Today, we still see challenges created by our need for energy and the new responsibility of sustainability. No longer focused on just oil and fossil fuels, we're now seeking alternative energy sources that will continue to be available well into the future, like on- and offshore wind and hydrogen. And some discussion is starting around the globe at this stage about the investigation of further use of nuclear energy, an area of research embedded in the history of the South East region with the proposed reactor at Carnsore way back then. While that proposal was ultimately rejected, a discussion on nuclear energy is re-emerging across the world as countries seek to examine reliable sources of energy to supplement renewables like wind and solar. We as engineers need to be innovative in relation to the provision of energy while keeping climate change and its effects to the forefront of our minds. The extensive use of fossil fuels has created an enormous challenge for all of us in addressing the damage that has been created by the extensive use of fossil fuels over the years. The commitment of the South East to wind energy not only aligns with our responsibility to future generations, but also positions us as pioneers in the quest for cleaner, greener planet. The wind turbines that now grace the landscape of the South East and Ireland's still only offshore wind on the Arklow Bank symbolise our dedication to sustainable practices and our collective responsibility to protect the environment. As we celebrate this 50th anniversary, let us not only look back at our achievements, but also look forward to the opportunities that lie ahead. Together, let us continue to embrace innovation, uphold our values, and work towards a future that is not only prosperous, but also sustainable for those who are going to come after us. May the South East region continue to flourish for another 50 years and beyond. And may our journey towards a more sustainable and inclusive future be a source of inspiration and pride for the whole nation. Let us continue to foster collaboration, knowledge sharing, and professional growth. In the spirit of camaraderie, I invite you to participate in the many upcoming events that will be taking place, including technical presentations, site visits, and social gatherings. These occasions provide valuable opportunities to learn, to network, and to celebrate our shared passion for engineering and celebrate our successes, and they are significant. Thank you for your endeavours, and may they continue to inspire the generations to come. And I finish by wishing the South East region a very, very happy and successful 50th anniversary. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, John. Next we have Laura Burke. Laura is a chemical engineer. She's a UCD graduate. She's the Director General of the Environmental Protection Agency, and she's the Senior Vice President of Engineers Ireland.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for the invite to be here tonight. I'm probably one of the few people that moved from Dublin down to the southeast. Most people seem to be moving towards Dublin. And I suppose what it highlighted to me, I moved to Wexford from Dublin 20 years ago for work in the Environmental Protection Agency. And when I talk to colleagues, and there's around 520 of us in the EPA now, in Ireland in totality, with around 150 people in Wexford alone, this opportunity for employment and for engineers in the regions, as well as sometimes I think we do kind of focus on Dublin being the centre of the world, she says, as a dub. But what I've certainly seen over the last 20 years is the opportunity for a really fabulous quality of life, a quality of life in the southeast that we couldn't possibly have had up in Dublin. And for me, I think that's a huge selling point for the southeast, the sunny southeast, as I always say to colleagues. And I think when I got more involved over the last number of years in Engineers Ireland and was asked to be involved, one of the key things that struck me is selling ourselves, but also the opportunities for engineers are everywhere. And more now, the Mayor was talking about changing the world and how engineers have changed the world. I'm not sure I'm with you on the torpedoes, but other things, yes. But it is around changing the world. And for me, I suppose I'd add the extra bit, changing the world for the better. And I think we should be selling ourselves as that, selling the opportunities right across Ireland for employment, because we're seeing that you can be sitting by yourself in an office or you can be out with people. If you look at the new employment opportunities, for example, now as you were talking about offshore wind, we now have the establishment in the southeast of MARA, the Maritime Agency Regulatory Authority, looking after all of the regulatory consents in the maritime area, with the potential for that organisation to grow to a size similar to the EPA, again in the southeast. So we really have to be selling those opportunities. And opportunities for young people where you can have a really good quality of life down here. So I think there's a kind of a responsibility for all of us to sell, not only engineering, but sell this beautiful region as well. The other thing that strikes me, and one of the things I know Damien and the team are really working on at the moment in Engineers Ireland, is looking to the future. Because we can talk about all of the fabulous things we did in the past, but they only last for a certain amount of time in people's memories. You have to be talking about where to from here. And we're in the process of developing a new statement of strategy and strategic priorities for Engineers Ireland. So what will be happening into the future? And one of the key bits of feedback we've got from members right across the country is when they think about Engineers Ireland, they think about networking. And the chair already talked about the real importance of that. And as I said, in the few years I've been involved in Engineers Ireland very actively, the bit I enjoy most is the networking and the meeting people and meeting like-minded people. And I think that's something we should really hold dear. And you know, an event like tonight, a Friday evening, so many people willing to come out to engage with each other and to learn from each other and to talk to each other and get ideas is so important. And I think we need to protect and flourish that into the future as well. As well as, and I would always say, is we need to get more young people into Engineers Ireland, but also coming to events like this and recognising the importance. I think this age group here is probably younger than some events I've seen, to be honest with you. So we do need to get kind of brothers, sisters, children, all of that, not only doing engineering, but being an active part of the engineering community as well. So look, as I said, I will leave it on the changing the world for the better, and you'd expect that of the Director General of the EPA to be talking about, but not only from an environmental perspective, there are such economic opportunities when we look at addressing some of the challenges and opportunities to address social issues as well. So there is, as John said, if engineers won't do it, then nobody will. So I think the onus is on us to make sure the momentum is there for action. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Laura. And next we have Damien Owens. Damien is an electrical engineer and a Trinity College graduate. He began his career in telecommunications. He then joined Engineers Ireland staff in 2010, working as Register and Chief Risk Officer, and he's now the Director General.
Thank you. So I will try and keep this brief. It's a great honour to be here this evening to help celebrate the 50th year of the very active South East region of Engineers Ireland. As you know, the region spans a number of counties with an extremely diverse range of industry, which I'll touch on later. Initially, for some inspiration, I decided to look at the engineers' journals from 1974, 50 years back, to see what was happening back in the day. And it's amazing how many of the topics that were in the journals back then are still topical, shall we say. So the late Finbar Callanan gave his presidential address, and Finbar was with us until only last year, so I think that was a significant event. There was a seminar on the future of energy, which is a great name. You could probably have that any time. But yes, recycling of industrial and domestic waste in Ireland was another key topic. Water resources in Ireland, including the River Shannon flooding. The Irish telex system. Anybody who can remember what telex is will be showing their age. The impact of oil prices on Ireland's cement industry. New concepts in energy storage, again a topical item. And the natural gas debate. So they were the topics of the day that were exciting engineers and the minds of engineers back then. But rather than delve into any of these topics, allow me to indulge in a personal perspective for a few moments, and I'll give you, I suppose, a perspective on how engineering events in the southeast have generally impacted on my life and career. In 1979, I started as a trainee technician down the road here in what was then Waterford RTC. And I had great memories of, I suppose, the tuition and instruction we were given there, but one of my abiding memories was the size of the portions of food that were dished up in the canteen. They were certainly not calorie controlled. There was a catering college as part of the RTC, and they would cook whatever every day, and we got huge portions. Just for a reference, a key reference point that people go to, the price of a pint back then was 48 pence, or about 60 euro cent. Now that didn't bother me because I wasn't yet 18. And after a few months, there was a postal strike in 1979 for 6 months, which meant that the CAA offers didn't come out till around October. And then that's when I got my CAA offer and I returned to Dublin to study engineering. My next touch point was about 10 years later. I was working alongside a US multinational that was looking to do some product assembly and manufacturing here. So we did a tour of most of Ireland, but also the southeast, looking at assembly and electronic assembly or companies and manufacturing companies. So the venture didn't come to much, but we had a good time looking at all the engineering facilities around the sector. 10 years after that, again, I was working in the telecommunications sector, and the work of the now Waterford Institute of Technology, so it changed its name. And the work of Waterford IT was prominent through the Telecommunications Software and Systems Group, a good engineering term, TSSG. And they were undertaking leading edge research in the telecom sector, particularly in European projects. After I joined Engineers Ireland then as registrar, I experienced firsthand the technical expertise delivered by our third level sector, rightly now a technological university. And this supports a hugely diverse range of sectors, from aerospace and defence forces in the Curragh through Seto Carlu, and then the range of companies, electronic companies in Seto Waterford. And on occasion, international reviewers we had looking at accreditation systems have really been impressed by what you see achieved within the sector. In particular, the very strong interfaces with local industry. I think that's a key aspect of the Institute of Technology that I don't think we should ever lose. And more recently, on an utterly different note, one of my hobbies, old clocks. We've seen the development of the Museum of Time here next door in that wonderful quarter where there's 4 different museums. This is a fabulous exhibit. I encourage you to visit there sometime. I know many people who contributed their collections of antique clocks to the museum. So if you've ever asked yourself, why is the Museum of Clocks here, Museum of Time here? New Geneva. Back in the 18th century, there was a failed rebellion and the ruling French and Swiss alliance, and a wave of Genevan refugees, so refugees from Geneva, came across Europe. And they were highly valued. As artisans, in particular, Ireland wanted to attract them for growing silk and making clocks. And the architect James Gandon built a place called New Geneva near Passage East. which later became a barracks, but he designed a whole square and facilities for artisans to make clocks or wherever down near Passage East. Unfortunately, for political reasons, the artisans went back to Geneva. Things got patched up back there, so it never got traction. And New Geneva then became an army barracks. So just imagine for a moment, but for a quirk of history, Rolex watches could be made in Waterford. It was close. However, it's never too late. Manufacturing, engineering and industrial technologies have long been the cornerstone of Waterford City and the regional economy, employing over 31,000 people. And Waterford has been designated a regional city of scale and importance and a driver of national growth by the National Planning Framework. So this can only mean one thing: more engineering talent is needed in the South East, and this bodes well for the health of the South East region and committee. Finally, on behalf of the Council, Executive Board and all the members of Engineers Ireland, I'd like to thank the members and committees of the South East region over the years for their sterling work and valuable contribution, and rest assured that you have our support for the next 50 years. Good morning.
Thank you, Damien, and that concludes our guest speakers. Our next section is reflections from past chairs. So when I spoke to a lot of the chairs, many of them were extremely forthcoming with very fond memories of their time in the chair and on the committee. So we've asked a couple of them to share those memories with you here tonight. Obviously, we've tried to spread this over the years, but also over the disciplines and the sectors and the genders. And our first speaker is Philip Callery, who was the South East Region Chair in 1989. Philip worked with Wexford County Council, where he was the county engineer, and he also went on to be President of Engineers Ireland in 1987.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, Vice President, past President of the institution, thank you for inviting me to say a few words. I'd just like to outline the career that I had, the wonderful enjoyment I've got out of engineering down the years. I started in 1966. I graduated in UCG, and you might remember that was the year of the World Cup in England, when England won the World Cup. And I had obtained a job with Somerset County Council. So together with my young bride, we headed off to England. And we arrived there right in the middle of the World Cup. There was huge euphoria and excitement about the possibility of England winning. And of course, when they did, the country erupted. More than erupted, because it's said that in the city of Birmingham, everybody went to the loo at half time and all the manholes in the city just lifted. But it was a wonderful time and a great introduction to engineering. Somerset County Council were very progressive, and they had computers before anybody else had them. So it was a great introduction to computers for a young engineer. One of the things I learned in Somerset was the importance of being a chartered engineer. You could not progress in salary in the organisation without having achieved your chartership. So that inspired me to become chartered as quickly as I could. And when I got back to Ireland in 1971, that was the first thing I did, and no regrets. Back in the early 70s, engineering was fairly low-key down here in the southeast. But I think we have to remember one man in particular, an assistant county engineer in Kilkenny, who soldiered day and night for the profession. Paddy Dixon was his name. And he kept the whole institution of engineers alive here in the early 70s when things were very bad. In the 70s as well, we were very fortunate in 1979 Finbar Callanan joined as Director General. And what a mark he made on the Institution of Engineers of Ireland and Engineers Ireland. He was a fantastic man. He was there for 17 years and transformed the institution. One of his great achievements was the Washington Accord, which was a mutual recognition of engineering qualifications in the English-speaking world. And Finbar made sure that Ireland was heavily involved in that and was one of the original signatories to the Washington Accord. I was very fortunate then working for Carlow County Council that Oliver Feehan was the county engineer, and Oliver went on to become president of the Institution of Engineers of Ireland in 1984. I think there were only 2 people from the southeast who have been president of the institution, and Oliver was one and I'm the other one. He was a great engineer and a great motivator, and he made a great contribution to all the works in Clyde Road. I remember his retirement, and the councillors in Carlow were fulsome in praise of what he had done and what he had achieved. And one of them got up and he said, he was praising his work ethic, and he said, the man was a work alcoholic. And he certainly was a very hard worker. Then I was chairman of the Southeast in 1989, and there was a slippery slope because you get onto the council and then you're invited to go on to the executive of Engineers Ireland, and before you know it, somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, would you like to be president? So I couldn't say no. And I was president in 96, 97. I was hoping to be president in 98 to celebrate the bicentenary of 1798 for Wexford, but unfortunately that didn't happen. That year we introduced the concept of the Year of Engineering in the country, and we produced a number of plaques which were placed on various historical engineering achievements. For example, Dunleary Harbour, the North and South Sloblands in Wexford, which was a huge reclamation project back in the 19th century, the Chetwynd Viaduct in Cork on the railways, the Shannon Navigation Scheme, and the Burr Telescope. I remember particularly the placing the plaque at the Burr Telescope, and it was in the grounds of the castle in Burr, Lord Ross's domain, and he very kindly invited us all in to lunch that day. So we had a lovely lunch with Lord Ross and his family inside in his castle. Very memorable. The council of the institution during those years decided that there wasn't enough women involved in engineering in Ireland, and it was decided that it was high time that there was a lady president. So I had the pleasure of asking Professor Jane Grimson from Trinity to become the first lady president in Ireland. And I'm very glad to see that that tradition is now continuing, and the institution will be in safe hands, I have no doubt. One of the other activities of that year was a visit to China. The Chinese Institution of Mechanical Engineers were 50 years old, and they sent out invitations to all the institutions around Europe and indeed America and Canada to a celebration in Beijing of their birthday. So Frank Burke, who was the Director General at the time, myself, we headed off to Beijing, and we were treated like royalty. The event was held in the Great Hall of the People of Tiananmen Square, and we all had to, all the presidents who were assembled had to say a few words about the Chinese and the visit and everything. And I took the opportunity of speaking in Irish in the Great Hall of the People. I reckon there weren't too many people before me had done it, or maybe not too many afterwards either. The interpreters were perplexed, to say the least. But I reverted to English after a while. That year also we established the Academy of Engineering. It was a busy year, and I remember the first general meeting to decide whether we'd have an academy or not. It was as close as that. There had to be a vote taken, and the vote was narrowly passed that we have an Academy of Irish Engineering. And what a wonderful achievement that has been, and what a great success it has been as well. And I was lucky enough then to be nominated as president of the Academy. I was the second president. John Killeen was the first. Just looking at the southeast here over the years, it's wonderful to see the achievements that have taken place. I would say the greatest achievement from an engineering point of view is the establishment of the Southeast Technical University. It is a wonderful opportunity for students from the Southeast to study engineering to a high level, up to level 8, and that can only be of huge benefit to the whole region. The motorway construction has been fantastic in the Southeast as well. The Dublin to Waterford motorway, and indeed the M11 in Wexford down as far as Oilgate. I wish they would continue and finish it off down to the port, but it's been a great achievement. Looking back, the numbers of engineers in Engineers Ireland in the early 70s was round about 3,000. We now have, I think, up to 25,000 members, which is a huge success as well, and a great tribute to all the Director Generals that we've had down the years. So with those few thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, I leave you, and well done to the Southeast. Your predecessors would be proud of you. Thank you very much.
Sorry, now I have it. Next to Mary White. Mary was in the chair in the Southeast region in 1993. Mary is the co-founder, and she is a director of Fingal & White, who are energy consultants based in Portlaoise. Thanks, Mary.
Good evening, everyone. When I got the phone call from Kevin, I was delighted to say yes and come here and hopefully meet a few people I haven't seen for a long time. I was involved in the Southeast region from the early 80s to the late 90s. In the late 90s, I was living in Laois, which was part of the Southeast region, and a decision was made to move Laois into the Midland regions, so I was no longer part of the Southeast region. That was not my choice, but I think with hindsight it was a good idea. There are links between the 4 local authorities and counties and businesses in the Midlands, and Laois. The home for Laois is in the Midlands. But while I was in the Southeast region for that period and chair in 1993, I worked in Waterford County Council, in Laois County Council and in Kilkenny County Council. Last week I reviewed some of the my diaries for a start, which I wouldn't think anyone would want to see. They're bitty and little messages, and I got very little out of it in terms of 1993, 1994. But I went through the lectures that, the whole programme that the Southeast region were involved in from that period, from the 80s to, I didn't go through all of them, but it's a substantial programme. I was impressed once again. Sometimes when you're in the middle of things, you're busy. You're busy getting people to give a lecture, organising it and that, and you don't stand back and look and see what was achieved. And the following year you're busy with more things again. So I was very impressed that very good CPD in terms of lectures and site visits. And then the social networking events, my memory is good on those, included the annual dinner dance, a table quiz, a debate between the 2 RTCs as they were then, and numerous golf outings, including, I think now, at that time, the IAI Classic had been started in the late 80s, early 90s, and in Laois we enjoyed 2 good classic outings on the Heath, and then other golf outings in other places in the county. Now, I was listening to what Phil was saying, and he neglected to tell you the decision he made in 1989 when he was chairman, and it related to the fact that there were at that stage, most of the members were local authority based. And yet there was a lot of other engineering specialists in the area, and we needed to attract them. So what we decided then, and there was consensus on it, but it certainly was initiated by Phil Callery, that we would expand the topics, the site visits, to get more people from other specialists coming to the meetings and that, and becoming members and maybe committee members. So we took that on board, and I looked at the programme in 1995. The late Oliver Mannion from Kilkenny was chairman, and the topics that year included communication skills for the professionals, fibre optic submarine cable, efficient use of energy in industry, management for change, and combined heat and power case studies. So we had extended the scope and range of the lectures, and it did bring in more members. One of the highlights for me of being in the Southeast region was in 1986, Engineers Ireland designated the year as Women in Engineering in Ireland year. At that time, 4% of the members of Engineers Ireland were women. And so what we did in the Southeast region, we went out to schools, single-sex schools and co-ed schools, and spoke about the opportunities in engineering, and that it was a worthwhile career. And what we stressed was think about it. We weren't telling people, I wasn't saying to people, I like it, I enjoy it, I'm glad I made that choice. I just described what engineering was about, what you could do, and just said to consider. And one thing I learned from that was that you actually have to get the parents and the career guidance teachers if you want to get more girls studying STEM subjects and going on to study technical or have technical careers. So that probably was a very good lesson for me in relation to other STEM and other programs I got involved in. And then one of the other benefits of extending the scope of site visits and lectures was I got on a site visit to Medite. Bosch and Loam was another place that I visited, and these were opportunities that I wouldn't have got in my day-to-day work as a civil engineer. I appreciated all of those and also enjoyed them. But so what it boils down to, though, really, I could talk about the projects I worked on or lectures I went to as part of the Southeast region. But what stands out for me, really, are the people that I met working as an engineer. People who encouraged me, who I suppose had my back, gave me lots of advice. I just got really good nuggets of advice throughout my career. I made great friendships and good relationships with people, and so I'm particularly pleased to be here tonight and just say thank you to all those people, some of whom are here, who have encouraged me in my career and also in what I was doing within the Southeast region. I think it's also an opportunity for us to reflect on people, other chairs, other members of the committee who would be here today, but unfortunately have died and are no longer with us, but would definitely be here. So I'll just conclude by saying that I've no doubt that successive chairs and committees in the Southeast region will continue to provide CPD and social events for the members, and I wish them well in the future. Thank you.
Sorry, these are all mixed up now. It took 3 attempts. I spoke to 2 other Mary Whites before I got Mary, so I'm very glad I got the right one in the end. Next we have Owen Gill. Owen was in the chair in 1999. He's still a very active committee member. Owen is an environmental engineer. He's the director of CalMAS STEM Engagement Centre at SETU, and Owen is the founder and coordinator of Maths Week.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Mayor, our past president, our vice president, and fellow engineers, and particularly pleased that there are families of some of our deceased members here today as well. That's really, the committee really appreciates that. I joined Engineers Ireland in the late 80s after graduating, and I joined because it was the institution of engineers in Ireland, and I was an engineer and I was in Ireland. I didn't question it, you know, and I think that's really important that we do, as a profession, have a learned body, and all the benefits that come with that. So I came to Waterford 30 years ago, in 1994, when Ollie Mannion was the chair. But I was involved in the Agriculture and Food Division and a lot of other things at Clyde Road. So when I came to Waterford, I was determined not to get sucked into the southeast region. I didn't reckon on that force of nature that is Una Parsons. And Una, she was involved in organising a careers event in De La Salle with hundreds of pupils at it, and she had the main disciplines of engineering, and she contacted me because she wanted somebody from the Agriculture and Food Division, so I ended up covering all the applied engineering branches at that. And that was, I had done schools talks in Clyde Road before that, but that I think was when I really realised that getting the next generation into engineering was so critical. Now, it seems it's a distant memory, 1994. There was a feeling when I got involved in that event, and I remember going on my first site visit to Louisiana Pacific, and it had just opened, and I was amazed. First of all, there was big numbers at it, but the networking and business that seemed to be going on at that visit was completely different to what I'd experienced, the experience of being involved in a division. That multidisciplinary thing, it really struck me. And it became a great resource for me as a young lecturer. It gave me great contacts in industry, organising site visits, jobs for students, graduates. And really, there has always been such a dedication and openness among engineers in the region in helping students. And, that really has been important and continues to be important. And that's the region has been a key part in that. I was very impressed with the programme. As Mary said, there was a CPD series run in the winters, and that was engineers giving up their time to deliver CPD, which other engineers paid for, and which went into the coffers of the region and helped fund the region, our activities. We had the annual dinner dance as well, that was always a big event every winter, and all these site visits and various, our usual programme of lectures. We had our annual, as Mary said, the Carlow versus Waterford student debate, and I think Ken Thomas here was involved on the training the students on the Waterford side, and Michael Glynn up in Carlow. So it was a great way of meeting people. We used to have very big attendances at lectures, which is a thing that unfortunately right across the board, getting people out to events is and even after COVID, even more difficult. I should say that during COVID, the regional committee really stepped up and had fantastic programme online and had fantastic engagement, huge numbers. Thing when you put on that chain, when you're honoured to be chairman, and when you put on that chain, you realise there's a lot of names there before you, and you realise that you're part of a continuum, and there have been each name on that chain also represents a committee, and many people who are involved in the committees over the years. I know the chairs are here today and they're recorded, but many committees over the years. And I remember particularly in my time in the 90s, Dermot Druin as long-serving secretary and Michael O'Sullivan as long-serving treasurer were really terrific. As I say, I joined in Ollie Mannion's year, he was followed by Liam Fennelly and then Una Parsons, who went on to do such great things in Clyde Road, and now more recently up in Atlantic Technological University. Then we have Michael Kelleher, who's here today as well, and John Mullins, and I succeeded John, and Derry O'Sullivan came after me, and that closed out the millennium. But also, in addition to all the people who contributed on committees, engineers in industry in the southeast, many of them unnamed and unrecorded, brought jobs into the southeast, brought industry, built up industry. A lot of these are healthcare and pharma companies and the tech sector. All of those have to compete with their other branches all around the world. And Irish engineers have managed to keep the industry going, to expand it, and to create, you know, the jobs that we have now. And there's a lot that are known to me personally, but in general they're not known. But their engineers have created such supported lives, families, the economy of the region. I think I remember being on, myself and Una and Liam being on the regional divisional task force, looking at how to run regions and divisions, and that was my first experience of distance meetings. We did it entirely online and by phone, and it was a very successful event in the institution's history. It led to the establishment of the Sector Liaison Committee and all that work that has been done in the area of sectors. We ran the first engineering week here in 2006, and then the Engineers Week set up the following year, and we've been part of that since. So I credit Una with sucking me into the southeast region, but also into seeing the importance of promoting engineering and STEM, broader areas of STEM. And we set up, the college was very good to set up the CalMAS Centre, and in 2003, and we've been working hard since then to try and promote STEM across the region, and we have about 35,000 people come to our events every year in the region. We also set up Maths Week because we reckon that maths, there's no engineering without maths, and most of STEM needs maths, and maths is the weakest link. It's a lot of kids, a lot of people have struggled with maths. So Maths Week, I'm glad to tell you, had about 500,000 people involved last October, and it's a all-Ireland partnership. Just in the region here, we're between ourselves and our colleagues in Carlow, David and Shane, we're planning Engineers Week, Southeast Engineering Festival the week after next. But we're putting together plans for a comprehensive approach to promotion of engineering as a career in the region, and that will be a cooperation between Engineers Ireland Southeast Region, Southeast Technological University, and industry partners across the region. So we hope that that's going to be a game changer. So I'd like to say as well that that I'm very fortunate to have the support of Colette, my wife, who's an engineer, and a better one than I am. And my son Kevin is here, and he is an engineering student at present, and I hope he will become active in the institution as well. I think the institution, as John said earlier, it's really important. The challenges that face us it's engineering that's going to be needed. So it's more important than ever. And the big challenge for every committee and every region is the fact that we're interdisciplinary. It is a challenge and it can be difficult. But I think more and more that multidisciplinarity in the future is going to be our greatest strength, and it's going to become more and more important as multidisciplinary approaches to society's problems become the norm. I think it's important to get involved in Engineers Ireland. I'm preaching to the choir at the moment. I think for the knowledge, networking and collegiality, it's vital, and it's important to get involved and stay involved. And I am grateful to the experiences that the region has given me, and I'm grateful for all the wonderful people I've met through being involved. I would just like to say it's never been a better time to be an engineer. But there is a challenge to us as a profession, because, and as a nation, because unless we have enough engineers, the economy stops. And the Southeast Regional Skills Forum has just published, was it yesterday or the day before, the evaluation of engineering skills needs in the manufacturing and construction sectors in the region. And 45%, I think, of employers say there is a severe shortage of engineering talent, and 43% on top of that, I said there was a moderate. So we're working all together to hope to change this. There are some copies of this available at the back. Edmund Connolly and Stephen Rooney of the South East Engineering Cluster produced it. Edmund, I'm delighted to say, has joined us today, and there are some copies for people there. So I would just like to say I probably won't be around for the 100th event. There will be several people who are in the audience who will be here, and I hope that the region goes from strength to strength in the future. So thank you all very much.
That's great. Thanks, Owen. Next we have Pat Roach. Pat was in the chair in 2005, and he was a committee member up until very recently. Pat is a mechanical engineer. He's a UCD graduate, and Pat was the founder and is the director of Arkman Consulting Engineers in Gorey.
Thank you, Kevin. Good evening, everyone. Founder and director, that sounds really good, you know, for a small business in North Wexford. I am really honoured to be here. That's the first thing I have to say, and to get this opportunity to just reminisce, because in my head I'm just reminiscing here, so it's probably going to be a little bit random. But when I was asked to do this, two things occurred to me. The first one was with respect to my own year, and I actually didn't remember what year it was there. I just even had to be reminded what decade it was, never mind what year. But one of the most satisfying things that I was involved in for that year was one of the events that we did at the National Ploughing Championships in Tullow, it was, in that year. And I'm going to credit, and I hope Owen remembers this, but I think it was your idea, Owen, that you floated it first, and we thought about it, and we said, yeah, that's a great idea, and we brought a stand to the National Ploughing Championships in Tullow in that year. Now, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I thought it was the first time that Engineers Ireland had ever done this, but I'm sure there's lots of people here who can correct me if that is the case. But I found it to be a very satisfying event, just from the point of view of meeting people directly who were interested in engineering and getting to hear where they were coming from. And there was such a range of people that came up at that particular event that it sort of brought, lots of things kind of occur to you when you're meeting people directly, and you learn a lot about your own ideas of what engineering is, and then what other people are thinking about it with respect to that. One of the visitors to the stand was I'm pretty sure she was the Minister for Education at the time, Mary Hanafin, who sat in for a photograph at the stand and gave us a little bit of profile. So it was a very satisfying event to be involved in, and it's something I'd recommend that Engineers Ireland do it every year, but I'm not sure if that is actually maybe it is happening, but it was a good one to be at. And thinking about that particular event got me back to 1979 and UCD, when I went to UCD for the first time and went to their very first lecture, which was given by Professor Vincent McCabe. Not sure if anyone remembers Vinny, but there may be a few here who do. And the very first thing he did was wrote up a definition of engineering to the class. And in 1979, for all of us first-year engineers, you couldn't articulate what an engineer was. You really couldn't. And I suspect that's, a lot of people might still struggle to articulate what an engineer is, even after spending a lot of time in the business. Anyway, Vinny's definition was the practical application of scientific principle. Anyone else ever heard of that one? But that stuck with me, and that's going back a long way, and I haven't heard of a better description since. And I suspect that when you talk about the practical application, that's the thing that actually makes you want to be an engineer. It's that practical application bit of it that that draws you to the profession and the activity that is engineering. And if you want to explain engineering to non-engineers, that might be the best way of doing it, because it's a struggle. And non-engineers, we know this, that they don't get it, really. They don't really get it. And I know it's something that Engineers Ireland tries to overcome, but it's a struggle. I think we'd all admit that. Just on the practical application end of things, that leads me to my own kind of day-to-day business. I like to style myself as an applications consultant. And I know you have to sort of say you're a consulting engineer. I used to be concerned about even using that term because it's sometimes it tends to separate you and distance you, and I try to avoid that as best as I can. But the application bit of it is I suspect what interests me about the application bit of it is the interface between design and design concept written down versus the execution, and there's often a gap there. So the practical application bit of it is what I remember from 1979 with Professor McCabe to what I do now on a day-to-day basis. And even though nearly all my contemporaries, when I go to the pub every week, they usually don't have to get up the next morning to go to work because they're all retired. And the reason why I'm not retired is because I still kind of like that application bit of things, so I'm going to keep doing that for now. There's just two random kind of bits of my career I could keep going on. I won't do that. The only one other thing I want to just reference, Mayor Jody, I'm pretty sure that in the mid-90s you came to a factory that I was working with Waterford Foods in, and you did a boiler inspection. I'm pretty sure you signed up. Is that possible? Yeah, okay, I thought so. Anyway, I haven't forgotten, but it all worked out very well. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for this opportunity to do this. It's been great.
Thanks, Pat. And then finally, we have Mary Doyle Kent. Dr. Mary Doyle Kent was the chair as recently as 2019. She's still a current committee member. Mary's a DIT Bolton Street graduate. She's a manufacturing engineer and she's the head of the Engineering Technology Department in SETU Waterford.
Mayor, Chair, esteemed guests, I'm absolutely delighted to be here this evening. And of course it was Owen, where's Owen? There you are, who I suppose brought me back to Engineers Ireland after being away from it for a long period of time. So I went to Bolton Street, and I went to Bolton Street because I wanted to do some hands-on learning. I wanted to apply, engineering principles, to projects and to actually make things. Because my father, even though he wasn't an engineer, he was the person who brought me into his workshop and showed me how to turn on a lathe, how to make things, how to design them, on the back of a packet. And he went on to have international patents, in his time. So I went to Bolton Street, and my first site visit as a student engineer was in Sulzer Pumps back in Wexford. And I was really impressed, at this idea of being able to walk into this fantastic manufacturing company and find out about what they did and how they did it. And as a student, it really did impress me that Engineers Ireland opened up so many doors to us. I went on to work in France then as a design engineer in the automotive industry. And I suppose my 10 years in industry has led me into new product design and development, from Ferrari to Rockwell International to designing Play-Doh in Waterford and Cartamundi. Back in the day, I was the new products engineer. Then I went on to work in a biomedical company launching Ray-Ban sunglasses. So I had a very varied career, all different types of products, but they were all engineering products, engineering process that I worked with. So Bosch & Lomb closed their plant in 2000. And I, along with other members of the audience here, I scratched my head and I said, what will I do now? And I was always drawn to the youth, to young people, to teaching, and I had taught in Bolton Street at night time. And I decided I'll go for a job. I'll go and try and become a lecturer. So 20 years later, and I suppose 20 years of graduates, here I am, still working in SETU, in the South East Technological University, because I really am passionate about education. I'm passionate about the youth, and I believe that our young people will be the people that are going to, make huge changes in this world. Things have changed, but when I listened to Mary about the different lectures that happened back in the day, we're still talking about the same things. We're talking very much about the same, the same topics. Have we progressed? Well, I'd like to think that we have. But I do believe that going forward, I think sustainability is key. I think digitization is another key thing in education at the moment. And also personally, one of my personal things is equality, diversity and inclusion. And you might want to ask yourself and scratch your head, why is EDI important in engineering? It's really critical. If we want to bring in the best youth, the best minds, okay, these smart young people, to make these really critical changes, we need to value all minorities, including women. We need to, embrace differences, and I'm really passionate about that. And I suppose one of the volunteering positions that I have is a global chair of the International Federation of Automatic Control, and that brings me in contact with 50 different countries. And I suppose my role there is to let people spread the word that EDI is important in engineering. It may be something that we haven't thought about before, but I'm delighted to be, a member of the committee in Engineers Ireland who definitely, get it, and they realise that, engineers of the future are global engineers, and we're attracting engineers from all over the world in our international committee. And if you were to walk into any classroom in SETU, you would see, student engineers from many, many different countries. And that brings its own challenges, but above all, it brings a richness, that's intangible, really. So, over a cup of coffee one day in SETU, Owen said to me, Mary, we have a great region here, in the southeast. Would you think about coming to an event? And I said, oh, maybe I will. So about 10 years ago, the fire was lit in me again. And once my first event was with Dr. Ken Thomas. I went to Bosch and Lomb and we looked, we went into the clean room and we saw how implantable cardiac devices were manufactured. And I just thought, this is something incredible. This is something amazing. So I joined the region, and I was delighted to take over from Susan Gallagher, who was a wonderful chair before me. And, we plan a lot of events during the year, and I'd just like to welcome anybody that's new to this region here that maybe isn't an active member. I'd like to say to you, consider joining the committee. Consider, proposing an event in your area, because Engineers Ireland South East region, it's mechanical, it's manufacturing, it's civil, it's biomedical. We've lots and lots of different electrical, electronic engineers in the region. And, we want to be diverse and we want to be, I suppose, more open to having new ideas and new experiences. So I had the privilege of being chair in 2019-2020. Okay, we all remember 2020 March, don't we? I was reminded this evening that on the 12th of March, Ireland shut down. Okay, so we were doing really well in the region. Okay, we had a number of different outing events, I think probably in Rosslare Golf Club. We had a Precious Planet event in Carlow. We had a fantastic wastewater treatment event, and as a mechanical manufacturing engineer, going to Enniscorthy, and looking at how you treat water with technology was, it was an experience. I saw things I never want to see again, but anyway, thanks for that. It was quite the experience. So we went on to have an event, with the civil engineering side of it. It was a masonry and rendering event, and I think it's great when we bring different organisations together. It brings, a lot of richness to what we do, and it brings great numbers as well. So we can't forget the numbers, can we? One of the things I've tried to do in the region is to have an annual biomedical event, and I invited my sister-in-law, Dr. Annette Kent, to talk as someone from a pharmaceutical background who has transitioned into the engineering. She's gone into that zone. And she did an amazing talk, I remember it in SETU, and it was called Transitioning from Pharma to Medical Devices, a Change Worth Making. And I just thought to myself that evening, you don't really talk about what you do to a family member, but she gave me great insight into why this was one of the most important things she'd done in her career. Phil talked about the sloblands, and how important it is to Wexford, the north and south sloblands. And I think it was Larry who brought us back to the sloblands in 2020. I'm just looking for the date there. And he organised, Larry Lett, an engineering history of Wexford sloblands and the use of remote sensory telemetry for data acquisition on wildfowl. So there's a great example, of the old and the new, and using new technology, in the very best way, to monitor the geese and the other species of wild animals that come into County Wexford. This was the last event that we had, and it was in March 2020, and we all went into shutdown, but I was delighted then when the person that took over, Colm Callery, really brought a new inspirational way of doing things, and I particularly want to thank, Engineers Ireland in Clyde Road, because they brought the tools and the technology into our regions to allow us to continue and really to maximise, how we did things. And not only were we now regional, but we were national and international. So bringing technology, I suppose, to the regions meant that we had a much greater reach, if you like. So just going back, Owen mentioned that he's married to an engineer and his son is an engineering student. Well, I'm also married to an engineer, and two of my sons one is a graduate working in Wexford Tech Pack, and the second guy is hopefully going to graduate now in the next few weeks, all going well, fingers crossed. We all know what that means, don't we? And why did they study engineering in South East Technological University? Well, going back to Owen again. So when they were very young, they continuously came down with me and their dad to SETU, to Waterford. Because CalMAST, I believe, are a catalyst for a lot of the young people in the region. CalMAST, inspire, okay, the primary school children, the secondary school children. And what they do is they often bring these young people on campus, both in Carlow and in Waterford. And what that does is it familiarises our youth. It familiarises the girls and boys of the region with what we do and who we are, Susan and I are roped in every year for decades, aren't we, Susan? One memorable occasion was a Girl Guide visit down in Wexford. Do you remember that? Owen is very persuasive, okay, and he gets us all involved. And I'm very proud to be a volunteer for STEPS. It's an important part of what I do. It really aligns me with my values. And every year for over a decade, I've gone to Loretto and Wexford and all the girls' schools that I can muster up time to visit in County Wexford and further afield. So going into the schools, face-to-face, explaining your experiences, when I talk about designing Ferrari wheels, it's always quite impressive. I get a good bit of a lift from that. But we have the tools through Engineers Ireland to do that, and we have the backup. One final thing I'd just like to say is that, Engineers Ireland going forward is a very part of what we do in SETU in Carlow and Waterford. And year after year, the region has been very generous to our students. They make very, very nice donations when our students go on trips, international trips, all over Europe. And so does, Clyde Road. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for opening up the purse strings and being generous to our students and bringing, membership, in a tangible way into the classrooms. So the only way you can get money, donated is if you sign up. So I think we probably have record numbers of students in the South East Technological University who are members. And it is, I think it's important that they are exposed and that they have the very positive experience of being a student member, because what do we want to do? We want and need to continue that pipeline. One of the taglines that I use when I do go out to schools is, engineering is a passport to the world. Because of this agreement that we have, you can travel, you can do whatever you like. And from a D&I point of view, it's a wonderful way to travel the world, but also with money in your pocket. So it doesn't matter what your background is, if you become an engineer and if you earn, as we all know, your degree, you can go wherever you like and you can work in any industry that you like, and that you can be rewarded for it. So I'd just like to thank Engineers Ireland Clyde Road, Engineers Ireland South East Region and SETU, because I think we mentioned that you can study up to level 8 in SETU, but that's actually a myth. You can do your master's degree, you can do your PhD, and we have Ramesh from SEAM here this evening, one of the technological gateways in the region. And I do believe, that we're one of the best kept secrets. And I suppose if I have one wish for the future is to get our engineering building constructed. We're a long, long time waiting for it. And to draw in all those young, intelligent, and maybe not so intelligent students that are good with their hands, to have a rewarding and fulfilling career in the region. And I suppose that's my wish for tonight. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Mary. And that takes us on to our presentations. First of all, I'd like to ask John to make a presentation to Jody Power to thank him for being here, and to also thank him and the council for the use of the venue here tonight, the perfect venue for our event.
Thank you very much.
And we have another presentation to make to an associate engineer title to Fabrice Shakili. Fabrice graduated from the ISTA in the Democratic Republic of the Congo with a diploma in electromechanical engineering. He achieved his associate engineer through the mutual recognition agreement between Engineers Ireland and the Engineering Council of South Africa. The agreement demonstrates the importance of the collaboration with peer professional bodies to facilitate international mobility of engineers and technicians. So, well done, Fabrice. That takes us on then to presentations to past chairs. So the principal idea for tonight was we'd get as many of the past chairs as possible in the room here. It turns out that's easier said than done. There wasn't much in the line of a written history of the region. Pretty much all we had to go on were the names on the chain, and we're not detectives, that's not our expertise. But we are engineers, so we're good at caveating, and here's our caveat. We did the very best we could to contact as many people as we could over the last few months. But if anything about what I'm about to say is inaccurate, you're very welcome to come and set the record straight or help us to contact a few people who we failed to contact. So, after much Googling and many phone calls, we managed to contact 41 of the 45 names on the chain. There's 45 unique names on the chain covering the 50 years because a couple of people served more than 1 year. 5 of the past chairs are known to be deceased, although I suspect there may be slightly more than 5 because it's up to 50 years ago and they may have been 40, 50, 60 years old at the time. So I'm just going to call out the past chairs in the order that they served, and a certificate to mark the occasion will be presented to a past chair if they're here tonight, or a representative, or we made contact and they couldn't be here tonight, or there's a small few who we failed to make contact with. So I'll ask John is going to present the first few. And as we said earlier, Paddy Dixon was in the chair in the first year in 1973, and he held that position for 4 years, and Seamus Quickly is here to accept it on the Dixon family's behalf. In 1978, it was B. Corrie. We failed to make any contact there with B. Corrie. In 1978, Douglas Baxter was in the chair of Douglas Baxter and Associates, who were taken over by Garland. I spoke to Douglas. He now resides in the UK, and he couldn't be here tonight, but he wished us all the best. In 1979, John Fitzgerald was in the chair. We failed to make contact there. In 1980, Finbar Coughlin, who is now deceased, but again, the certificate will be accepted by Seamus Quickly on behalf of the Coughlin family. In 1981, Richard Alexander Bowen, who is now deceased, was in the chair. He was a civil engineer with McMahon and McPhillips, and he's represented here tonight by his son, Richard Jr., who's a civil engineer with TII. In 1982, Jay Kelly was in the chair. We failed to make contact there. In 1983, Tom Barry was in the chair. Again, we failed to make contact. In 1984, Jerry Ford Sr., who is now deceased, was in the chair. He was a senior engineer with Wexford County Council, but we will send on his certificate to his family. In 1985, Frank Fox was here tonight, was in the chair. He was a civil engineer with Frank Fox and Associates in Waterford. In 1986, Colin Becker was in the chair. He's an engineer with Inland Waterways Ireland. I spoke to him, he couldn't be here tonight. In 1987, John Flynn was in the chair. He was an engineer at Waterford County Council, and he's represented here tonight by his wife, Kay. In 1988, with Dennis Moran, who was the head of the School of Engineering at WIT, couldn't be here this evening. In 1989, with Philip Callery, who was a Wexford County Council engineer and IEI president, who we heard from earlier. In 1990, the chair was Seamus Crickley. He's an environmental engineer and a director of Water, Energy, Wastewater Engineering Limited. In 1991, Liam Fitzgerald was in the chair. He's now deceased. He was an engineer with Carlow County Council. In 1992, Billy Moore, who was an engineer with Tipperary, at the time, and he later went on to be county engineer in Monaghan. We don't have a representative here tonight. In 1993, Mary White, who we heard from earlier in our reflections, was in the chair. In 1994, we had Oliver Mannion, who is now deceased but is represented tonight by his wife Joan. Okay. In 1995, Liam Fenley, who was an engineer with Malone Reagan in Waterford. In 1996, Una Parsons was in the chair. Una's a mechanical engineer. She's the head of engineering and design at ATU Sligo. In 1997, Michael Kelleher was in the chair. He's an electrical engineer with ESB. In 1998, John Mullins was in the chair. He was a consultant engineer in Wexford Town. In 1999, with Owen Gill. In 2000, we had Derry O'Sullivan, who was a regional director at Roadstone. In 2001, with Niall McGuigan, who can't be here tonight, but he was an engineer at Wexford County Council. In 2002, we had Peter Seymour, who was a sustainability consultant at Ecorview. In 2003, we had William Corby, who couldn't be here tonight, but he was a civil engineer with Tipperary County Council. In 2004, we had Mary Bowe, who's a civil engineer with TII, again, couldn't be here this evening. And in 2005, we had John Callery, who was a former Director of Services at Wexford County Council. In 2006, with Pat Roach, founder and director of Artman. In 2007, 8 and 15, David Deneve. David is an electronic engineer in SCTU Carlow. In 2009, with Shane Murray, who couldn't be here this evening, he's a civil engineer in SCTU Carlow also. In 2010, Albert Byrne, who couldn't be here either, he was the head of trades in SCTU Waterford. In 2011 and 12, Tony LaHoff, who was a civil engineer with Kilkenny County Council. In 2013, with Sarah Flynn, who couldn't be here tonight, but she's a mechanical or a civil and biopharmaceutical engineer in Digital Marketing Ireland, Digital Manufacturing Ireland. In 2014, with Dr. Ken Thomas. Ken is a civil engineer and head of the School of Engineering at SCTU Waterford. In 2016, with Ivor Bowe, who couldn't be here this evening, from Bowe Consulting Engineers. In 2017, Dr. Derek Sinnott. Derek is a civil engineer at SCTU Waterford. In 2018, we had Susan Gallagher, who was also a civil engineer in SCTU Waterford. In 2019, Dr. Mary Kent Doyle. In 2020, with Colin Callery, who was a civil engineer at Roadstone. In 2021, with Christy Hannon, who's a structural engineer at BAM. In 2020, with Lar Lett, who couldn't be here this evening. He's a civil engineer with the Local Government Management Agency. And this year, that takes me up. So, in closing then, we're nearly there. My time on the committee could be divided into three parts: pre-COVID, COVID and post-COVID. Pre-COVID, everything was going very well, pretty much, I'm sure, as it had been for the previous 40 years. Then, during COVID, as several people have said, everything was turned upside down. We had to have all of our meetings and all of our events online. And Colin Callery was in the chair, as Mary, I think, said, and he did a super job steering us through a very, very difficult time. And I'd say we had record attendances, we had record number of events, we had record attendances at both meetings and events, so he did a super job steering us through a very difficult time. But we're out the other side now into into the new normal, and I think the biggest challenge we face is getting attendances and getting the right blend between online and in-person events. So I really would encourage you, pick a few events over the year, and when you get an email, if you have half an interest in going to a thing, book it in and put it in your diary, and you're halfway there. I believe, and certainly from the reflections of the pairs, the reflections from the past chairs tonight, that when you look back over your life or over your career, or even a period of 5 or 10 years, it won't be the Teams or the Skype meetings that you remember. It'll be the places you went, the people you met, and the things that you saw. So please go forth and spread the good word on that for me. And then just very finally, I'd like to thank you all for being here to celebrate this occasion on behalf of the committee. And I'd like to thank the subcommittee who helped to organise the event, David Neef, Owen Gill and Christy Hannon. And I'd encourage you now to really stay for some food and drinks and catch up with old friends. Thank you all very much.